Humanity had always believed itself to be the dominant species on Earth, but when the universe came knocking, that illusion shattered. It happened in 2134, the day of humanity's first contact. But it wasn't a peaceful meeting between civilizations. It was an invasion. They came from the void, the Ihavari, a predatory species that saw Earth as nothing more than a resource-rich hunting ground. Towering, insectoid creatures with razor-sharp mandibles and an insatiable hunger for biological matter, they didn't bother negotiating. They didn't see humans as equals. They saw them as prey. The first strike was brutal. Cities were incinerated within hours. Military responses were laughably ineffective. Bullets shattered against their chitinous armor, energy weapons barely scorched their hides, and their bioweapons turned Earth's strongest defenses into nothing but dust and corpses. The war didn't last long. It wasn't a war, it was extermination. By the end of the first year, 80% of humanity was wiped out. The survivors were rounded up, caged, and transported off-world. Those who resisted were either eaten alive or thrown into the fighting pits to entertain their new overlords. The Ihavari called it the Great Harvest. But humans had another name for it. The Fall. Hope in the dark. Deep within the frozen mines of Yavnaker, a prison planet on the far edge of the known galaxy, the last remnants of humanity toiled under alien whips. The air was thick with dust, and the cries of the dying echoed through the tunnels. Escape was impossible. Surveillance drones hovered at every corner, and traitorous humans, those who had sold their loyalty for scraps of food, ensured any thought of rebellion was crushed before it began. Among the enslaved was Commander Elias Voss, a former Special Forces operative. Before Earth fell, he had led covert missions against terrorist cells. Now, he shoveled rocks alongside the broken and the starving. His once proud people had become nothing more than livestock. But even in the pits of despair, humans held on to something the Ihavari couldn't understand. Rage. Rage at their fallen cities. Rage at the slaughtered billions. Rage at the monsters that thought themselves gods. One night, in the deepest tunnels of Yavnaker, Voss and a handful of survivors whispered their first act of defiance. It was impossible, they knew. But so was surviving an apocalypse. They would escape. They would retake their freedom. And they would make the galaxy burn. The mines of Yavnaker were a place of despair, but desperation bred innovation. Commander Elias Voss had seen men survive against impossible odds before, but never like this. This wasn't just about survival. This was about vengeance. Voss and his small group of survivors, engineers, former soldiers, and scientists, knew they had one chance. They had to be smart, careful, and ruthless. The Ihavari were arrogant. They believed humans were broken, nothing more than labor and food. That arrogance would be their undoing. The plan had 3 parts. 1. Disable the planetary surveillance grid. 2. Seize control of a Ihavari transport vessel. 3. Escape and ignite the first human rebellion. Failure meant death. Success meant war. The first strike. The escape began under the cover of darkness, deep in the mines where the Ihavari rarely ventured. A young engineer named Kara Mitchell had discovered something critical: old maintenance tunnels that led to an inactive thermal vent, an access point to the prison's main control hub. If they could reach it, they could hack into the Ihavari security system, disabling the surveillance drones long enough to move undetected. The problem? The vent was crawling with hive-born hunters, Ihavari creatures bred specifically to track and kill escapees. No one had ever survived an encounter with them. But humans weren't known for playing fair. Voss and his team set crude but deadly traps, improvised explosives, collapsing tunnels, and firebombs made from stolen fuel cells. When the hive-born attacked, the humans turned the tunnels into a furnace of death, chitinous exoskeletons shattered under rockfalls, and alien screams filled the mines. By the time the last hunter fell, the way was clear. Kara hacked the security system, her hands shaking. The drones above flickered and fell from the sky, blind and useless. The first phase was complete. Stealing a warship. With security down, Voss led his team through the industrial yards, sticking to the shadows as the Havari guards barked orders in their guttural tongue. They were headed toward Docking Bay 17, where a newly arrived transport ship, the Karezel, had just landed. It was lightly guarded. After all, humans couldn't fly Havari ships. But the aliens had underestimated them. A former pilot, Lieutenant Jean-Ho Park, had spent months studying Havari technology, pretending to be a broken prisoner. He had memorized the ship's interface, its controls, its weaknesses. The humans struck fast. A silent blade across the throat, a stolen plasma rifle, and the docking bay was theirs. They moved quickly, sealing the doors before reinforcements could arrive. Then came the hardest part. The ship's security systems refused human biometrics. It wouldn't take off unless it detected a Havari pilot. They needed a workaround, or a body, Voss found the answer when one of the surviving guards tried to crawl away. With cold precision, he pressed a stolen pulse pistol to the alien's skull. Fly, or die. The Havari hissed, mandibles clicking in fury, but it had no choice. Under gunpoint, it activated the launch sequence. The Karezel roared to life. The docking clamps released. The bay doors opened. Humanity had just stolen its first warship. Escape and a promise. The Havari reacted fast. Alarm klaxons blared. Defense turrets swiveled into place, firing at the escaping vessel. But Park was ready. He maneuvered like a demon, twisting the ship through the storm of plasma fire. Just as they reached the edge of the planet's atmosphere, Voss gave a final order. Drop a parting gift. In the cargo hold, Kara had rigged the mining explosives into a makeshift bomb. As the Karezel punched into space, the humans detonated the mines below. A chain reaction ripped through Yavnaker's tunnels, burying the prison planet in fire and rubble. The mines that had once enslaved humanity were now the grave of their captors. As the stolen warship disappeared into the void, Voss clenched his fists. Humanity wasn't just running anymore. They were coming back. The stolen Havari warship, Karezel, streaked through the void, carrying the first embers of humanity's rebellion. Inside, Commander Elias Voss and his team pored over stolen data, searching for a way to turn their single ship into an army. They couldn't hide forever. The Havari were already hunting them, and it was only a matter of time before they were caught. Humanity needed resources, weapons, and most importantly, allies. And Voss knew just where to start. A Havari-controlled supply outpost, designated XR-79, orbited a gas giant in a lawless sector. It was lightly defended and stocked with enough weapons to arm an entire fleet. The perfect target for humanity's first strike. But there was a problem. The outpost wasn't just run by the Havari. It was a black market hub, where alien mercenaries, slavers, and criminals traded stolen goods. Even if they took the station, holding it would be a nightmare. Voss smirked. Then we won't hold it. They weren't here to conquer. They were here to steal, destroy, and vanish. The battle for XR-79. As the Karezel approached the outpost, Lieutenant Jean-Ho Park sent out a falsified clearance code, stolen from their dead captors. The outpost's orbital defenses hesitated for just a moment, just long enough for the warship to get close. Then, humanity struck. Phase 1, the infiltration. A small strike team, led by Voss and Kara Mitchell, slipped onto the station using stolen Havari biosignatures. The alien guards didn't even realize what was happening until Voss's knife silenced the first sentry. Phase 2, shock and awe. Inside the command center, Kara hacked the outpost's security, turning its own turrets against its defenders. Chaos erupted as mercenaries scrambled for cover, unsure who the enemy was. Phase 3, the heist. While the station burned, Park piloted the Karezel into the docking bay, where humans loaded crates of plasma rifles, explosives, and combat armor. Voss's team fought like demons. Brutal. Unrelenting. Efficient, ***. The mercenaries and slavers had seen war before, but not like this. Not against humans. Within 20 minutes, XR-79 was a battlefield of smoke and corpses. The surviving aliens fled, abandoning their posts. The Ihavari commander tried to call for reinforcements, until Voss put a bullet through its skull. A message to the galaxy. With the station secured, Voss gathered his team on the command deck. They weren't just here to steal supplies. They were here to send a message. Kara hacked into the outpost's communications array, broadcasting across the entire sector. Her voice was steady as she spoke the words that would ignite a revolution. This is Commander Elias Voss of the Human Resistance. We are not prey. We are not broken. We are coming for the Ihavari. And to any species that has suffered under their rule, fight with us or step aside. Then, they set the outpost to self-destruct. As the humans escaped with their stolen arsenal, the entire station exploded behind them, sending a clear signal to the galaxy. Humanity was no longer running. Humanity was at war. The explosion of the XR-79 outpost resonated through the galaxy. While it was a victory for humanity, it was also a rallying cry, a signal that humans were no longer meek slaves but warriors, capable of striking back against their oppressors. The message reverberated across the dark corners of space where the Ihavari had long since crushed hope and freedom. But humanity's fight wasn't just against the Ihavari, it was against a universe full of enemies who saw them as a threat. And yet, in the ashes of XR-79, Voss knew that one victory wasn't enough. Humanity needed allies. They couldn't win this war alone. The first of those allies arrived in the form of the Thraxians. The Thraxian Pact. The Thraxians were a brutal, reptilian race known for their merciless raids across star systems, yet they shared a common enemy with humanity, the Ihavari. Once, they had been ruled by the same insectoid overlords. Now, like humanity, they were free, but their freedom had come at a cost. The Thraxians had learned a hard lesson: to survive, you had to make difficult alliances, even with the most unlikely of partners. Voss didn't trust the Thraxians. But he needed them. The humans sent an encrypted message, offering an alliance: help us defeat the Ihavari. We fight for freedom, just as you do. The Thraxians were cautious. They didn't make alliances easily. The idea of teaming up with a species they once considered weak was anathema to their pride. But desperation breeds pragmatism. The Thraxians were also aware that their survival depended on not just taking down the Ihavari but preventing their return. A Thraxian warlord, Krogar the Wyrm, answered the call. He arrived aboard a heavily armed dreadnought, his massive form shadowing the human fleet. Krogar's voice boomed across the communication channels, as demanding and forceful as his reputation. Humans. His voice rasped. You want an alliance. You have one chance to prove yourselves. Show us your strength. Prove that you're worthy of battle. The test of strength. To cement the alliance, Voss had no choice but to comply. The Thraxians were warriors through and through. Their strength, their ruthless mentality, would be a valuable asset, but only if humanity could match them in battle. The test of strength was simple: a raid on a Ihavari convoy. If the humans could successfully ambush and destroy the Ihavari, they would prove themselves worthy of Krogar's alliance. With a combined human-Thraxian fleet, the plan was set in motion. The target was a Ihavari supply convoy, full of weapons and precious resources. The convoy was heavily guarded, but the humans had something the Ihavari never expected: tactical cunning. Voss's team led the charge. They lured the convoy into an asteroid field, where Krogar's dreadnought waited in ambush. Using hit-and-run tactics, the human ship struck first, hitting weak points in the convoy's shield systems with precision. The Thraxian dreadnought closed in, its weapons blazing with deadly force. Thraxian fighters swarmed like a plague of locusts, tearing through Ihavari escorts. The humans, coordinating with the Thraxians, used their agility to dodge and weave through the Ihavari's attempts to retaliate. The Ihavari had no chance. Their prideful arrogance had clouded their judgment. Underestimating humans was their mistake. The Blood Oath. With the convoy shattered and its supplies claimed, Krogar approached Voss on the bridge of the Karezel, his massive frame towering over the humans. He extended a hand, stained with the blood of the Ihvari. "You fought well," Krogar said, his voice gravelly but impressed. "The Thraxian Wirm does not extend its hand easily. But you, humans, you are warriors." Voss took the warlord's hand, his own expression grim. There was no time for celebration. This was just the beginning. "We fight together now," Voss said, his voice firm. "And we will take down the Ihvari, piece by piece." The Ihvari's retaliation. As Krogar and Voss solidified their pact, the Ihvari were already on the move. The Ihvari High Council had finally noticed the human rebellion, and their retaliation was swift and brutal. They sent fleets of warships to the farthest reaches of space, searching for any signs of the human resistance. The galaxy had just begun to see the first glimpses of a war that would shake its foundations. The Ihvari would not let a species they had once hunted rise up against them. And the humans? They had just begun to prove that they were no longer prey. The alliance between humans and Thraxians had proven invaluable, but the Ihvari High Council's fury was swift and unrelenting. They had underestimated humanity's resilience, and they had paid a heavy price for it. With every strike, humanity proved itself more capable of standing toe-to-toe with their oppressors. But now, the true weight of war pressed down on them all. The Ihvari retaliated with a vengeance. They brought fleets of warships, larger than anything humanity had ever seen, and they were bent on crushing this uprising before it could spread. The resistance had tasted victory, but now they had to fight for their survival. The Ihvari war machine. The Ihvari had learned from their initial missteps. They had adopted more strategic tactics, deploying their largest warships, elite squads of warriors, and bioweapons designed specifically to decimate any forces that dared stand in their way. Their new fleet, led by Fleet Admiral Zrethkar, was a terrifying force of destruction. The Ihvari had the numbers, the firepower, and an insidious edge, their knowledge of biological warfare, Zrethkar's flagship, the Zaldreth, was the largest warship in the Ihvari fleet, capable of decimating entire planets with its weapons. Its hull was laced with genetically modified armor, and its onboard bioweapons could ravage cities within hours. This ship was the spearhead of their counteroffensive. But the humans and Thraxians were not so easily defeated. The human counteroffensive. Commander Elias Voss knew they had to take the fight to the Ihvari before they could regroup. The humans could not afford to remain on the defensive, waiting for the Ihvari to strike again. The Thraxian alliance had proven itself invaluable, and now it was time to push the Ihvari back. They targeted Zrethkar's flagship as the focal point of their next operation. The mission was simple but deadly: destroy the Zaldreth, and cripple the Ihvari fleet's morale. To do this, they would have to breach its heavily fortified shields and infiltrate its command center. It was a suicide mission, but it was the only chance they had to make a real impact. The Thraxians, always eager for battle, were ready. The plan involved a daring raid, a direct assault on the Zaldreth using a combination of human stealth tactics and Thraxian brute force. A small strike force would infiltrate the flagship's defenses, plant explosives in key systems, and set the warship on a collision course with a nearby asteroid field. Voss had no illusions about their chances. This mission would cost lives, and the survival rate was slim. But humanity had learned to fight back, and they would do so on their own terms. The assault on the Zaldreth. The operation began under the cover of darkness, as the combined fleet of humans and Thraxians approached the Zaldreth. Their ships hid in the shadow of a nearby moon, awaiting the perfect moment to strike. The plan was to break through the Ihvari's outer defenses with distracting feints while the strike team boarded the flagship. As the battle raged around them, Voss's team infiltrated the Zaldreth using Thraxian stealth technology, a rare advantage. They moved quickly, planting explosives and sabotaging the warship's critical systems. All the while, the Ihvari were distracted by the Thraxian fleet's relentless assault, giving the humans the chance to wreak havoc inside the flagship. But they weren't alone. Ihavari warriors, trained to fight in the heart of battle, soon discovered the sabotage. The corridors of the Zaldreth were transformed into a bloodbath as human and Ihavari soldiers clashed in close-quarters combat. Kara Mitchell led the charge, cutting down Ihavari soldiers with ruthless efficiency. Jin-Ho Park hacked into the ship's systems, sending the flagship into disarray. As the strike team planted the final explosives, Voss knew the odds were against them. The Ihavari had begun to regroup, and reinforcements were on the way. But the bomb was set, and the countdown had begun. "We're leaving," Voss growled to his team. "Now!" The final push. With moments to spare, Voss and his team fought their way back to the escape pods. The Ihavari were closing in, but the humans had done their job. The Zaldreth was going down. As they ejected from the warship, they watched the Zaldreth begin to tilt toward the asteroid field. The ship's systems were spiraling out of control, and the final explosive triggered the ship's core to implode. The shockwave of the explosion sent ripples through the surrounding ships, and the Ihavari fleet was thrown into chaos. The humans had delivered a blow the Ihavari wouldn't soon forget. The turning tide. The battle was a decisive victory for humanity, but it was far from the end. The destruction of the Zaldreth sent shockwaves through the Ihavari ranks, causing a ripple effect that shifted the balance of power. The Ihavari High Command was now facing a threat they had never anticipated, a species willing to fight and take back their place in the stars. But as the humans celebrated their victory, Voss knew one thing: this was just the beginning. The Ihavari were not going to back down. The war had just entered its most dangerous phase. The destruction of the Zaldreth had shattered the illusion of Ihavari supremacy. For the first time in galactic history, the once dominant empire had suffered a humiliating defeat. But humanity knew this was only the beginning. The Ihavari would return, stronger and more brutal than before. Voss and his allies had no time to celebrate. They had wounded the beast, but now, they had to kill it. The Ihavari's last push. The Ihavari High Command had retreated to their inner sanctum, the heavily fortified Nexus system, where they planned their counteroffensive. They had summoned every remaining fleet, every warlord loyal to their cause, and every bio-enhanced superweapon they had in reserve. This would be their last stand. But humanity had learned something crucial: **** the Ihavari were not invincible, ****. The resistance had grown stronger. With each victory, more alien species joined the fight, inspired by humanity's defiance. The alliance was no longer just humans and Thraxians, it had expanded into a galactic coalition. Former slaves, broken civilizations, and ex-Ihavari soldiers who had lost faith in their rulers now stood together. Commander Elias Voss knew what had to be done. The only way to end this war was to take the fight to the Ihavari homeworld itself. A final, decisive strike. The plan: the coalition's grand offensive. The plan was audacious, bordering on suicidal. 1. Phase 1 ***, a coordinated multi-front assault on key Ihavari-controlled systems to scatter their forces. 2. Phase 2 ***, a deep infiltration mission to plant sabotage devices in the Ihavari's warp gates, the massive space bridges that connected their empire. 3. Phase 3 ***, a direct attack on the Ihavari High Command, an orbital fortress above the homeworld Zaith Core, where the Ihavari's ruling elite controlled the empire. If successful, the Ihavari Empire would collapse from within. The coalition fleet mobilized. Hundreds of ships, thousands of warriors, all preparing for war. Phase 1, the Galactic Uprising. The coalition launched a simultaneous strike across multiple Ihavari-controlled sectors. Fleets of warships struck Ihavari shipyards, crippling their production. Resistance fighters on occupied worlds rose up in rebellion, overthrowing Ihavari overlords. Even planets long considered loyal to the Empire began turning against their masters. The Ihavari, once an unstoppable force, were now on the defensive. The real blow came when a team of human Black Ops specialists infiltrated the Ihavari's primary communication hub on the planet Vectar. Within hours, Ihavari fleet coordination collapsed, they could no longer organize their forces effectively. It was time for Phase 2. Phase 2, the sabotage of the warp gates. The Ihavari depended on their advanced warp gates to move their fleets rapidly across the galaxy. If those gates were destroyed, the Ihavari forces would be isolated, unable to reinforce their homeworld. A strike team, led by Kara Mitchell and Jean Ho Park, infiltrated the largest Ihavari warp gate station. They bypassed security, hacked into the mainframe, and planted explosive charges deep within the gate's energy core. As they fought their way out, the Ihavari realized the trap too late. The charges detonated, obliterating the entire warp network in a massive explosion. Across the galaxy, Ihavari fleets were stranded, cut off from their homeworld. The Empire was crumbling. Now, only Phase 3 remained, the final assault on Zaith Core. Phase 3, the battle for Zaith Core. The Coalition fleet arrived at Zaith Core, the heart of the Ihavari Empire. The planet was a fortress, its orbit protected by a massive defense ring, bristling with planetary cannons, fighter squadrons, and automated kill drones. The Ihavari were desperate. Their remaining forces had gathered for one last, all-or-nothing battle. The battle erupted with unimaginable fury. The sky above Zaith Core burned with fire as thousands of ships clashed in an all-out war. Human and Thraxian battleships engaged Ihavari dreadnoughts in a brutal dogfight. Plasma cannons ripped through hulls, and debris rained down onto the planet below. But the Coalition had one advantage: momentum. The humans and their allies pushed forward, breaking through the defense ring. Then, as planned, ground forces landed on Zaith Core, storming the Ihavari's high command fortress, the very seat of their empire. Commander Voss led the charge, fighting his way through Ihavari warriors, bioengineered monstrosities, and the last of their elite guards. And then, at long last, he reached the throne room. The Queen's last stand. Inside the high command fortress, the Ihavari Queen waited. The ancient ruler of the Ihavari, the architect of humanity's enslavement, stood defiant. She was no ordinary being, her body enhanced with genetic modifications, her mind capable of telepathic warfare. The Queen was the last piece of the Ihavari war machine. If she fell, so would the Empire. Voss and his team faced their deadliest opponent yet. The fight was relentless. The Queen moved like a ghost, striking with unnatural speed, her voice echoing inside their minds, filling them with doubt. But humanity had come too far to break now. In the final moments, Voss struck the killing blow, a Ihavari energy blade piercing the Queen's heart. As she collapsed, the Ihavari Empire collapsed with her. The end of the war. With the Queen dead and the High Command destroyed, the Ihavari surrendered. The once mighty empire was no more. Planets that had lived in fear of the Ihavari for centuries were now free. Humanity, the species they had once tried to enslave and exterminate, had defeated them. The war was over. But Voss knew that the galaxy was far from peaceful. With the Ihavari gone, new threats would rise. New powers would challenge humanity. But this time, humanity would not be caught off guard. They had earned their place among the stars. They had become the predators. The destruction of the Zaldreth had been humanity's greatest victory, but it was not enough to end the war. The Ihavari were angry, vengeful, and more determined than ever to crush humanity once and for all. For every step the humans took forward, the Ihavari would take two in retaliation. The stakes had reached a boiling point, and Voss knew that the final phase of the war had begun. It was no longer about simply surviving. Now, humanity had to win. But how? The heart of the Ihavari Empire. The Ihavari Empire was vast, sprawling across countless star systems, but there was one target that could finally break their hold over the galaxy, the Ihavari capital world, **Zaith Core **. It was the heart of their empire, the seat of their High Council, and the place where all decisions were made. It was also heavily fortified, surrounded by an impenetrable defensive network. The very thought of attacking it seemed impossible. But the resistance was no longer afraid of the impossible. Voss gathered his most trusted officers and allies, humans, Thraxians, and the growing coalition of rebel factions, and shared his plan. The final strike would require coordinated attacks across multiple fronts. They would hit Ihavari military supply lines, sabotage defense systems, and cripple any reinforcements before they could reach Zaith Core. The capital would be isolated, and when it was vulnerable, humanity would strike at its core. It was a long shot, a desperate gamble. But desperate times called for desperate measures. The infiltration of Zaith Core. The first phase of the attack was an audacious infiltration. The humans, working in secret with their Thraxian allies, managed to infiltrate Ihavari-controlled space by slipping through a blind spot in the Ihavari's defense grid. The Karezel, now heavily modified and armed with the best weapons humanity could muster, led the way. Voss knew that once they reached Zaith Core, there would be no turning back. The Ihavari would notice their approach, and they would retaliate with everything they had. They had to act fast and hit hard. As the human and Thraxian forces gathered their strength, a final assault was launched on Zaith Core. Human stealth ships and Thraxian warships moved into the system, attacking the surrounding Ihavari defense stations to create a diversion. With the Ihavari distracted, Voss's strike team infiltrated the capital world's atmosphere, bypassing its surface defenses. They made their way to the heart of the capital, the Ihavari High Council Citadel. Inside the citadel was the Ihavari Queen, the leader of the entire empire, their ultimate weakness. If humanity could take down the Queen, they could dismantle the empire itself. But getting to her would be the most dangerous task of all. The citadel was heavily protected by elite Ihavari warriors, bioweapons, and advanced security systems that had never been breached. The final battle. The assault on the High Council Citadel began with brutal precision. Voss and his team stormed the citadel's outer defenses, fighting through waves of Ihavari soldiers. The battle was fierce, thick with blood and alien bodies, as humans and Thraxians fought side by side. The Ihavari Queen's guards were elite, but they had no idea what humanity had become. Kara Mitchell, with her unparalleled combat skill, cut through the ranks of Ihavari warriors, her blade flashing in the dim light. Jin-Ho Park hacked into the Citadel's central security system, shutting down the internal defenses. They made their way to the Queen's throne room, where the Ihavari Queen awaited them. Her throne was a massive, grotesque structure made of dark alien metal, and her eyes, multifaceted and predatory, fixed on the intruders. ***, you dare challenge the Ihavari Queen? ***, her voice was a venomous hiss. She was an ancient being, centuries old, and her hatred for humanity was palpable. Voss stepped forward, his face grim but unwavering. ***, we dare, ***. The final battle between Voss and the Ihavari Queen was a clash of wills. The Queen, enhanced by genetic manipulation, fought with an overwhelming fury. She was fast, deadly, and near unstoppable. But Voss was human, ***, resourceful, resilient, and driven by something more than fear, ***. He knew that this was the moment that would define the war. If humanity could defeat the Queen, the Ihavari Empire would crumble. The battle was brutal. The Queen's talons scraped against Voss's armor, and her venomous breath nearly disintegrated him on contact. But, with a final, desperate strike, Voss plunged a Ihavari energy blade deep into her chest. The fall of the Ihavari Empire. With the Queen's death, the Ihavari Empire began to unravel. The High Council's grip over the galaxy weakened, and its fleets fell into disarray. The heart of the Empire had been severed. The news of the Queen's death spread quickly throughout the galaxy, igniting rebellions in Ihavari-controlled systems. The humans and their allies moved swiftly, securing planets, disabling Ihavari warships, and liberating enslaved species. The Ihavari were no longer a threat, they were broken, and their empire was on the verge of collapse. Humanity had done what many thought impossible, they had gone from prey to predators, from slaves to victors. A new era. As the final remnants of the Ihavari fleet scattered into the void, Commander Elias Voss stood aboard the Karezel, gazing at the stars. The war was over. Humanity had fought for their place in the galaxy, and they had claimed it. But even in victory, Voss knew that the galaxy was vast, and humanity was far from the only player. New enemies would rise. New threats would emerge. But this time, humanity would not be unprepared. They were no longer prey. They were predators. And the galaxy was theirs for the taking.